Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Hello again, and yes, I know I kept you waiting for this one. Things just kinda got out of control, I guess. Also, it doesn't help that the BBC treated my last Christmas review like the leaking of CIA documents and needed me to absolutely destroy it in editing just to get it out. But a couple of months later, the reviews are finally back because it's time to review Series 8 as a whole. Obviously, I've spent the last half of the year going through every single episode in detail, so you can watch those analysis videos in the handy playlist. But how does Series 8 as a whole stack up? It's often kind of overlooked by fans, but I really feel like it's underrated and doesn't deserve the bad writing reputation it often gets from people. So, without any further ado, it's time to take a deep dive into why Doctor Who Series 8 is so amazing.
Today's the day, humankind.
You may be wondering why this video took so long to make, and to tell you the truth, I got a bit distracted and carried away with reading, since I try to read a little bit every day, whether that be books or magazines. I found myself doing a lot of early Series 9 research by reading magazines like SFX, which I like to read on the fantastic Readly app I've mentioned before on this channel. Media magazines are full of all sorts of exclusive interviews and little behind the scenes tidbits, so they're a great tool for media research, and Readly has really helped me with videos like this. It's easy to navigate and you can download magazines to take with you, like I did recently when I went to London for Money in the Bank and I had to sit on the train for an hour, so I was still able to get some research done before acknowledging my tribal chief. I also love how they have old editions of magazines, so I can easily go back to 2014 and 2015 copies of SFX and Radio Times to get the best information at the time it was like breaking news, along with a bookmarking tool letting me save articles for a later date. I always come across things that I think, oh, that'll come in handy when I get to that episode, so it's great for, actually being able to keep track of things and saving those articles. The app also has this great recommendation feature, so not only do you have access to over 6,000 magazines and newspapers from across the world, but it also personalizes your recommendations and suggests the most fitting magazines for you to read. I highly recommend Readly, and luckily for you, if you click the link in my description, you can get 2 months free access, which you can cancel at any time. If you want to read all kinds of magazines and newspapers about any kind of hobby, this is the app for you, and hopefully it inspires you in your own hobbies and daily life, just like it does for me. And now, on with Doctor Who Series 8.
Listen, it's lovely talking to you, but I've really got to get on. I'm a caretaker now. Look, I've got a brush.
Part 1. A brand new Doctor. Much like Series 1, 2 and 5 before it, Doctor Who Series 8 has the distinction of introducing a brand new incarnation of the iconic time-travelling figure, this time played by the absolutely magnificent Peter Capaldi.
Can you just hurry up, please, or I'll hit you with my shoe?
At the time of his casting, Capaldi was known more for his roles as the furious and explosive Malcolm Tucker from The Thick of It. It's no surprise then that the 12th Doctor initially comes across as very abrasive with a more gruff and edgier exterior. This is a very fresh and exciting dynamic for the main character to have. It feels like a natural evolution of the Doctor, maintaining the complex and enigmatic core of the character while still moving forward by adding in these new traits. He can be very blunt and harsh at times, which gives the 12th Doctor a brilliantly layered sheen of unpredictability. Deep Breath introduces this new take on the character in a wonderful way, mixing in comedy and drama to help guide the audience through the change into an unfamiliar version of the Doctor.
Man, don't look in that mirror. It's absolutely furious.
Doctor, please!
As an introductory episode, it's almost perfect, making sure to still showcase all the whimsy and alien charm you expect from the character, whilst also pushing you, in this new direction. Capaldi's take on the Doctor is very well informed by eccentric past incarnations like the 2nd, 3rd and 4th Doctors, who were themselves particularly alien in their characterizations. The 12th Doctor struggles to fit in or understand humanity, allowing him to make lots of jokes and also be the butt of a lot of jokes too, as he struggles to fit in.
You said you had a date. I thought I'd better hide in the bedroom in case you brought him home.
The 11th Doctor was also a very eccentric character, but his main characteristics were how youthful and excitable he was, enthusiastic about random things, and bouncing around with fizzing energy. However, despite 12 being charismatic and eccentric in his own right, he's a sharp contrast to 11, and I think he's more of an honest reflection of who the Doctor actually is underneath all their different faces.
Really? 99%? That's quite high. Is that the figure you're sticking with?
It's easy to forget how old the Doctor really is, because we're tricked by the young faces and endearing charisma of most of the incarnations. But the truth is, this is a character who is over 2,000 years old and has seen and experienced so much in all those countless lifetimes. You can't expect them to always be a young and quippy poster boy.
If you were real, you'd be dead in 6 months.
I am real.
Bye.
so I really appreciate how Moffat incorporates this age and life experience into the 12th Doctor, exploring the effects of that long and tragic life. 12 is a much more methodical and philosophical incarnation, taking a step back and adopting this slower approach of thinking first and foremost. He spends a lot of his time reflecting on things like we see in Listen, where he slows down to explore his personal theories and seek answers.
Proposition. What if no one is ever really alone?
He's an incarnation who enjoys his own company and challenging his mind, so I think he's a great example of showing the character's true age and maturation by being more hands-off and meticulous than his immediate predecessors. He's not as spontaneous and chaotic as 10 and 11 were, but he still has that deeply reckless streak we see throughout the series, showing how confident he is in his own abilities, even if that means putting himself in extreme danger. I think Series 8 actually takes a novel approach of reincorporating a sense of mystery into the Doctor's character. Much like the 9th Doctor all the way back in Series 1, 12 has a strong sense of guilt and conflict which makes him more unpredictable and harder to trust because you don't know if you can rely on him anymore. He throws side characters away to die, abandons Clara on multiple occasions, and in general just comes across as a much darker person than we had come to know in previous incarnations. Thanks to this new, unwelcoming personality, we can take a step back and see the Doctor in a new light. This introspection, exploring his own identity and sense of morality, wondering if his actions and behaviour really make him a good man.
Tell me. Am I a good man?
Series 8 also uses its side characters and villains to explore elements of this new Doctor. Episodes like Into the Dalek really shine a spotlight on his flawed sense of morality and his often black and white worldview. Even Rusty the Dalek observes that, "You are a good Dalek." This is an episode that really manages to reinvigorate the Daleks as a villain. Not only does it look fantastic with its industrial and mechanical visuals, it's a phenomenal episode for the Doctor as a character. He refuses to believe that Daleks can be good, but he seems to completely overlook how dark and full of hatred he himself can often be without realising. Something we see as his own hatred manifest within Rusty, driving the Dalek to wipe out his own kind. It's a brilliant way to hold a mirror up to the Doctor and highlight his own moral shortcomings, revealing how similar he is to his own mortal enemies. It's similar to how the half-faced man in Deep Breath is like a physical manifestation of the Doctor being a ship of Theseus of sorts, having regenerated so many times and lived so long that there isn't much of the original Doctor left anymore, so he isn't sure what he stands for now. This is part of the core theme of the series, exploring who the Doctor really is by nature. He's a complicated figure, not a picturesque and flawless hero. Just look at how Robot of Sherwood examines how Robin Hood defies the myths, and he isn't the kind of hero the legends say he is.
History is a burden. Stories can make us fly.
Robot of Sherwood is a very fun episode that definitely doesn't take itself too seriously, seeing the Doctor and Robin bicker and fight for the spotlight, leading to a constant flow of entertaining moments and put-down comedy.
Oh God, I think he soiled himself.
Moffat wanted Series 8 to focus on the extent of the Doctor's heroism, and Robin Hood is the perfect vehicle for this.
When did you start believing in impossible heroes?
Don't you know?
They're both heroic, larger-than-life figures who seek to help the disadvantaged and the needy, so it's a positive reminder of how well-intentioned the Doctor still is despite his new bitter exterior. The Doctor is still a fairy tale impossible hero like Robin Hood and Santa, someone we can believe in against all odds, but these early episodes remain as a strong character examination of the Doctor as a general character archetype, showing that he's not so easily defined.
I don't think I know who the Doctor is anymore.
As long as the Doctor tries to do the right thing, he's capable of being a good man. And that's what comes to fruition in the finale, with that incredible moment of the Doctor coming to terms with his true identity as just an idiot with a box passing through and helping out wherever he can. Like we find out in Series 10, he does what he does just because it's right, not because he wants to win or expects any kind of reward. This is how he breaks that traditional heroic archetype. Without witness, without reward, he simply does this stuff because it's the correct thing to do.
Passing through, helping out, learning.
I love the journey the Doctor is forced to go on to reach this conclusion. It's his complex relationship with characters like Missy and Danny Pink that bring it out of him, humanising the Doctor and giving him that capacity to learn and grow. Danny exists as a way to challenge the Doctor on his hypocrisy. He doesn't have that biased view of the Time Lord like Clara often does. I know people tend to hate on Danny, but he does his job perfectly as a mirror of sorts, opening the Doctor's eyes and giving him this new perspective of himself. Similarly, Missy tries to egg the Doctor on and take advantage of his self-doubt, but this only serves serves as a way to remind the Doctor of his moral compass and his desire to do good rather than fall down that darker path. It's a series full of these kinds of challenges. The monsters and villains all hold mirrors to the main character, giving him something to rally against regardless of his own doubts. Like we see in Flatline, he has a role to play and he embraces that wholeheartedly.
The man that stops the monsters.
The 12th Doctor's character evolution in Series 8 alone is something a lot of fans seem to overlook or outright refuse to acknowledge because of his grumpy persona. Obviously he has that abrasive attitude at times, but that never devalues the core of his personality.
I can't tell if you're a genius or just incredibly arrogant.
Well, on a good day, Amber.
It's a series all about how imperfect he is, but how that doesn't make him a bad person. Mummy on the Orient Express is a great example of this, showing how he's forced to grapple with all sorts of difficult moral choices and consequences. That episode is perfect for showing how the 12th Doctor often has to make seemingly callous decisions for the greater good, allowing people to die so that he can save the lives of even more.
I thought you were saving him!
He was dead already, I was saving us.
It's a classic trolley car problem and it helps to flesh out the deeper layers of such a complicated figure. We learn how calculating and brutally realistic he has to be to save people, even if that means being seen as an uncaring monster.
So you were pretending to be heartless?
Would that make it easier?
I feel like every incarnation of the Doctor has had this risk assessment calculating nature, but the 12th Doctor is one of the only modern ones who has been honest and upfront about it. He doesn't make a quip like 11 or become overly melodramatic like 10. He just gets on with it because he knows he has more lives to save and can't afford to dwell on those he was forced to sacrifice.
What Sabra is dead, we're alive. Prioritise if you want to stay that way.
It's a brilliant aspect of the Doctor's character to focus on, and Series 8 does it in a really effective way, especially as Clara serves as that audience surrogate, learning about it all in the same way we are, coming to terms with it and realising it's not malicious, it's just what has to be done.
Sometimes the only choices you have are bad ones. But you still have to choose.
Part 2. A Companion's Journey. The Doctor isn't the only character who has a significant evolution and character journey during Series 8. Clara Oswald also goes through her own development throughout the series, building upon her existing character work from Series 7B and continuing her journey of independence and confidence as she becomes more like the Doctor.
Does this mean I'm you now?
No, it does not. So don't get any ideas.
At the beginning of the series, she's very thrown off by the Doctor's regeneration and the chaos of both Time with the Doctor and Deep Breath back to back. She's thrown into the deep end and obviously she struggles to cope, showing how far she still has to go as a person. After Deep Breath though, Clara learns to take care of herself in the absence of the Doctor. Into the Dalek shows how capable she is on her own, and at times she even kind of becomes like a teacher for the Doctor himself, subverting that usual relationship.
That means a good Dalek is possible. That's what we learned today, am I right, Teach?
Top of the class.
But it's really episodes like Kill the Moon and Flatline that drive the point home.
I am the one chance you've got of staying alive. That's who I am.
She's forced to step up and performs admirably, being shown both sides of being the Doctor. In Flatline, it's mostly all fun and games for her, being able to stroll around and enjoy acting like her best friend. But Kill the Moon places her in one of those impossible positions, needing to decide the fate of both the Moon and Earth itself.
You want today to be the day life on Earth stopped because you couldn't make an unfair decision?
Kill the Moon is a defining episode for Clara's character and also Jenna Coleman's career in general. The Doctor straight up abandons Clara, essentially testing her capabilities, albeit in a pretty unfair way.
I nearly got it wrong. That was you. My friend making me scared.
But that being said, it's a trial by fire, forcing Clara into a very real, difficult scenario. I love how the consequences of this show Clara's changing relationship with the Doctor, with the companion absolutely blowing up at him and rightfully tearing him apart for throwing her to the wolves like this. She holds him accountable for those inconsistent morals and gives him a reality check he desperately needs and actively learns from a few episodes later, as we see in the Forest of the Night.
You walk our Earth, Doctor. You breathe our air.
I walk your earth, I breathe your air.
Jenna Coleman adds so much humanity to this moment and does an absolutely phenomenal job, showing how the Doctor has pushed her too far like we've slowly been seeing throughout the series. Because yes, Series 8 is all about Clara becoming more like the Doctor, but this also explicitly comes at the cost of the stability of their relationship. All throughout the series we get these hints and glimmers of how toxic things are becoming between them. Hell, Clara still comes back even after all of this, which is a great way of showing how this relationship is souring and bringing the worst out of both characters, but they can't stay away because they mean so much to each other.
The control freak and the man who should never be controlled. You'd go to hell if she asked.
A lot of people like to read 12 and Clara as a romantic pairing, but I think it's actually a lot deeper than that.
You are her hero, I think.
I'm not a hero.
They clearly love each other, but I think it's something much more powerful than romantic attraction. I like to think of them as platonic soulmates. They have an incredibly tight and caring friendship, and it doesn't have to be romantic for their bond to be this effective and passionate. It's something more relevant in Series 9, but these two characters would do anything for each other. 12 even forgives her for a huge betrayal in Darkwater because he's willing to forgive her no matter what.
Do you think I care for you so little that betraying me would make a difference?
That's how much she means to him, and I love how these darker seeds are sown throughout the series. Obviously, they have a lot of amazing moments of comedic chemistry, sharing some absolutely wonderful and entertaining jokes and moments of humour throughout.
I'm his carer.
Yeah, my carer. She can, so I don't have to.
They're a great odd couple, with her bringing humanity and understanding while he saunters around making sarcastic remarks and forgetting basic etiquette. But that also works on a more serious level, because she is his morality and his human heart, keeping him in check and calling him out when he needs it because she isn't afraid to take him to task like that.
We're gonna die in here. And there was a little bit of you that's pleased.
But Series 8 also develops Clara's character by tethering her to Earth and giving her this identity crisis of sorts, desperate to try living two lives in one. Unlike Series 7, Clara has more established roots on Earth now with her job. She spends less time with the Doctor and more time working at Coal Hill, forming connections with characters like Danny Pink and Courtney Woods, who are very normal people that contrast her usual lifestyle. Danny specifically serves as an anchor for her, this developing romantic relationship she wants to make work, despite how often her time-travelling life interrupts and complicates things.
Your dad. Your space dad.
Like I mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people aren't fond of the Danny Pink storyline, but it's a great way to introduce this sense of normality to the show. Something so human, bringing regular life into the picture for once. They have this beautifully simple and natural human love story, meeting at work, going on dates and struggling to make things work, things most people can relate to and understand. It's boy meets girl, plain and simple, and it really works. They're not perfect people, so you root for it to work out, even when they find themselves constantly fighting because of Clara's greed at wanting both sides of her life to coexist, even though, you know, at times she needs to prioritize other stuff, like, you know, the children in her care. So it's a great, realistic relationship to follow.
Today, you thought the world was going to end. You still didn't tell me the truth.
I tried.
The Caretaker is a great boiling point for this double life exploding in Clara's face. She's forced to reveal Danny to the Doctor and the Doctor to Danny, which causes issues with both of them.
Well, you've explained me to him. You haven't explained him to me.
This episode in Kill the Moon are gateways of a kind, transitioning Clara's human storyline from innocent deception to straight up lies just so she doesn't have to choose one over the other, because she's a bit selfish in that regard, yet another example of her relationship with the Doctor bringing out the worst in her. But that doesn't make her a bad person, not really, she's just flawed and human after all. And that's the core of her journey, seeing her humanity shining through and reminding you that she's not perfect, just like the Doctor himself in his own way. Like we see in the latter half of the series, she becomes so accustomed to lying to Danny, even though he wouldn't really be mad at her for travelling with the Doctor. He just wants the transparency, you know, like a healthy relationship would, but she doesn't give him that, which is the reason their relationship turns so sour, because she just couldn't be honest with him.
It's funny, you only really know what someone thinks of you when you know what lies have told you.
And I like how she realises her mistakes when it's too late, turning their love story into a brutally heartbreaking tragedy with so much left unsaid. Danny dying and them never being able to see each other, Clara having to face that reality in the heart-wrenching dream sequence of Last Christmas.
When I wake up, you won't be there.
Danny's death was something so normal and simple that it serves as a real moment of dissonance for Clara, reminding us how divorced she has become from humanity itself. She refuses to accept that their relationship could end so suddenly, before she had that chance to make things right between them. And as we see in the finale, and especially Series 9, losing Danny sends Clara completely off the edge now that she has nothing keeping her in check. Clara is the Doctor's anchor to humanity, but Danny is Clara's. Without him, she only has the Doctor in her life and becomes more reckless trying to become like him, because she has nothing else left, nothing to hold on to keep her human and nothing to lose. It's amazing character development and Moffat knocks it out of the park, even though he wasn't writing this arc under the assumption Clara would stay on for another series to show those effects. Part 3. Old Soldiers. Whilst we're on the topic of Danny Pink, I want to touch upon one of the main themes of this series, that being soldiers. The idea of soldiers and being dictated by orders is a common theme throughout the series. We meet characters like Journey Blue and Danny Pink, along with creatures like the Teller, the Skovok Blitzer and the Foretold. These are all soldiers in some form or another, and each show different aspects of such a lifestyle, being dictated by rules and officers commanding them to do the things they do, often without them actually wanting to. The Teller and the Foretold aren't traditional Doctor Who villains, despite seeming that way to begin with. They're simply doing what they're commanded to do, what they have to do to survive. The Teller wishes for peace with its partner, but can't have that because that same partner is a bargaining chip Madame Karabraxos uses to force it to commit all these atrocities. Similarly, the Foretold just wants the sweet release of death, which, mood, but only because it's an old soldier in a tattered uniform which is being forced to kill people against its will, simply because of its augmented technology forcing it to stay alive. By pitting the Doctor against these kinds of soldiers, we get to explore the concept of free will, because he has a black and white worldview of soldiers, believing they're monsters who should know better. However, a lot of the time they don't have a choice, like with the Teller and the Foretold. Hell, even the Skovok Blitzer is simply a robot obeying its programming. And Journey Blue doesn't exactly choose to fight, she's just part of humanity trying to survive against the all-consuming Dalek horde. And Danny himself used free will to leave the military, despite the Doctor treating him like a soulless monster. It's a great storyline running throughout, challenging this worldview the Doctor has of military figures and forcing him to confront his own prejudices. Like Danny explains to Clara, it's not always about the fighting. It's also about helping people by building wells and things like that.
Whole villages saved, actual towns full of people I didn't shoot, people I kept safe.
But the Doctor is simply unable to see that. It's only through his direct experiences with soldiers throughout the series, and especially the finale, that he's able to accept Danny for who he is, and realise that they're not so different after all, it's just about being honest to themselves about what they are. This also plays into another major part of the series, which is things not being what they seem. A lot of people criticise the lack of out-and-out villains in the series, but I really appreciate it. Episodes like Listen absolutely shine because they challenge both the Doctor and the audience's preconceptions on there needing to be these kinds of clear adversaries. That episode is a fantastic character piece about the Doctor's expectations and obsession with having something to defeat, even if the monster might just be made up in his own head the whole time.
What if the big bad Time Lord doesn't want to admit he's just afraid of the dark?
Then you have episodes like Kill the Moon and In the Forest of the Night, where the implied threat turns out to be a misunderstanding. Natural parts of the universe the Doctor again expects to be villainous because of his past experiences and biases. As a series, it challenges us on what a villain even is. Do they do what they do out of free will and maliciousness, or do they just happen to be causing harm without meaning to? It's a brilliant question to pose, and we even see it coming up in Flatline, with the Boneless still being pretty ambiguous to this day because they had no way to communicate with the humans they were killing and threatening. The Doctor was forced to destroy them only because they posed a constant threat and wouldn't back down. But Kill the Moon and In the Forest of the Night's villains were simply nature in action and didn't need the Doctor's intervention. If he's the man who stops the monsters, what does he do when there aren't any monsters to begin with? Of course, there are still more traditional threats like the Half-Faced Man, the Sheriff of Nottingham and Missy, who are the kinds of villains we do expect from Doctor Who. But even then, they have their own complex reasons to do what they do. The Half-Faced Man steals body parts in a desperate attempt to gain humanity. The Sheriff of Nottingham is implied to be a robotic construct designed to act as a villain, and Missy creates an army of Cybermen and takes over the world just to try and repair her friendship with the Doctor. I love how her role is built up throughout the series, being teased in all these short scenes in a manner similar to the Cracks in Time. This ongoing mystery that comes to fruition in the finale.
I need to speak to whoever's in charge.
I am in charge.
Paying everything off with that incredible reveal of her being the Master.
Couldn't very well keep calling myself the Master. Now could I?
And even though the Cybermen are wasted in the finale, Missy is an absolutely brilliant villain for the two-parter. Michelle Gomez gives such an excellent performance, bringing the character to life so well and contrasting the Doctor in the ideal way. She's a breath of fresh air for the character, an inspired choice who adds a lot more depth to the character than the Sim Master had done. We get to see the more vulnerable side of the Master, although that's neatly balanced out by a much more deranged and unpredictably psychotic side than her predecessor had. So she has so many interesting layers the finale explores as she interacts with the Doctor. Their ancient friendship feels so understandable with these two actors specifically, with Death in Heaven actually making you somewhat sympathise with Missy despite everything she's done and continues to do, giving her a complex and multifaceted identity to match the 12th Doctor's own in the series.
I should shoot you in a jealous rage now. Wouldn't that be sexy?
Part 4. A bold step forward. It's safe to say that Series 8 took a lot of bold steps and made a lot of unpopular decisions for the betterment of the show. Despite a lot of audience pushback, this series changed everything about Doctor Who in the best way possible, giving it a more high concept sheen and proving it's capable of more, showing that it's still able to compete with the modern media landscape. Some of the directing and cinematography is truly gorgeous, and the episodes feel so incredible to watch. From costuming to sound design, effects to acting and everything in between, there is a really triumphant and cinematic vibe to Series 8. Even the episodes with weaker narratives still look amazing, like in The Forest of the Night, which has some spectacular visual direction. A lot of the monsters are brought to life in such a delightful way, like the Boneless, whose glittery, flickering and juddery movements make them even creepier. It's my personal belief that the visual look of Doctor Who peaked with the Capaldi era. Sure, the Chibnall years may have splurged on expensive cameras and, shot on location around the world, but the Capaldi era is a visual delight and a true milestone for a show that began with men in rubber suits and often very unconvincing wobbly sets. There's a humbling sense of progress and achievement baked into Series 8, and I believe that everyone who worked behind the scenes deserves just as much praise as all of those in front of the cameras. There are so many unsung heroes in the Doctor Who production team, and I really think they deserve special credit for Series 8, with the show transforming so beautifully in every department and shining brighter than ever, even if the ratings continue to drop lower and lower. Yes, despite all the ambitious storytelling and technical aspects of Series 8, it was the departure point for a lot of fans who pushed back against the show or walked away outright. And I do kind of understand why. It was a dramatic change for the show, but I think a lot of fans were unfair to not give it more of a chance and embrace the conscious storytelling of the show, which was emphasising that change and turning it into a storyline challenging the fans themselves. And yeah, unfortunately a lot of fans seem to fail this test of sorts.
You can't see me, can you? You look at me and you can't see me.
It was a series all about identity and coming to terms with heroism coming in different forms, and it's a shame the viewers weren't really that receptive to that, expecting the Doctor to be the same poster boy hero as most modern incarnations, rather than the more morally dubious classic version. I will admit that the series might have been better received if it hadn't been so heavily cut down and chopped around, with an absurd amount of important deleted scenes. Robot Show had a scene all about the sheriff actually being a robot.
First of a new breed! Half man, half engine!
Kill the Moon lost a scene explaining why the new moon was just as big as the space dragon, and in The Forest of the Night had a brilliant scene of the Doctor recalling Gallifrey and giving a beautiful speech, reminding the viewer that he's looking for it. There were loads of other little scenes adding context and atmosphere to episodes, along with fleshing out side characters more. It's just a shame so many were cut, especially with In The Forest of the Night, which was brutally cut down and lost all kinds of scenes explaining things like the electricity and water being affected by the trees. I genuinely think some of these deleted scenes could have been difference makers, as small as they are. They could have changed a lot about the episodes they're from, although actually, speaking of, I'm glad this one didn't make it, as iconic as it is.
Doctor in the TARDIS.
When it comes to the many series of the modern Doctor Who era, you'll often find fans celebrating Series 1, Series 4, Series 5, Series 9, Series 10, but never really Series 8. It's a series that seems to fly under the radar more often than not, and that's a huge shame because it's a great new start for the second half of the Stephen Moffat era, flagging the darker direction. It's full of all the action, excitement and intrigue New Who's become known for, but it also tries to evolve the show further and push it beyond the boxes fans were starting to put it into. As a series, it really takes that next step, using the unfamiliarity of the new Doctor to examine the character and the show as a whole, using all sorts of high concept narratives and storytelling to explore the Doctor's moral ambiguity and complex characteristics. 12 and Clara are an absolutely incredible pairing in every way. Their increasingly toxic relationship the perfect backdrop to all this development both for the characters and the show as a whole.
I'm the Doctor.
Don't you dare.
All the cinematic directing and visuals help to push this new ambitious vision of the show, looking absolutely gorgeous and sleek to complement the great writing. It's a real shame that so many fans are quick to write off Series 8, because it's genuinely underrated and underappreciated. I would therefore give Series 8 an A ranking on the overall New Who tier list, since it's one of my favourites, but stinkers like In The Forest of the Night definitely hold it back from that all-important S rank. Regardless, Series 8 has some absolutely mind-blowingly good episodes nestled within it, and in general the whole series just feels like the logical step for Doctor Who after the campy, action-packed 10th Doctor era and whimsical 11th Doctor era. Series 8 shows how much the show is capable of pulling off, and I really appreciate that, even if most other fans don't. It may not be the rollicking fun and feel-good show it was in, say, Series 2, but Series 8 is truly phenomenal in every possible way. It genuinely changes the game and perfectly sets the Capaldi era up as something very different and new. So, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time when we eventually tackle Series 9 in all its glory. See you then, bye bye. And a special thank you to my Banshim level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Platinum level patrons Maximilian Foreman and Nick's Games, and all my Gold level patrons Boots, Calvin, Daniel Shillito, Franzorn aka Line Vortex, Herna Verzog, Robert Hock, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.